Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a step-by-step guide on how to remove and replace your ceiling fan. I've been doing electrical for about 12 years now, and I've had the opportunity to work on quite a few different projects throughout the years. So without further ado, let's get to it. So to start this video off, let's go over some of the tools that would be helpful to have. One of them would be a Phillips head screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, an impact with a Phillips tip, a good pair of strippers, a pair of linemans. Believe it or not, a pair of channel locks doesn't hurt sometimes to have on you, as well as one of these testers. We will talk about these more in a little bit. And then also the best one to have on you would be a multimeter. I recommend Fluke. It's the only brand that I've been using for quite some time. Before you start to remove your ceiling fan, you're going to want to confirm that the power is off either at your switch or at your breaker that controls the room. This is a Harbor Breeze ceiling fan. As you know, most ceiling fan brands are going to be different as the way that they're put up and taken down. Most ceiling fans that are ceiling mount will have two screws on each side, one with a hole that goes straight through and one that has a slot. We're going to start right here with the chains. These pull chains, they go through these holes right here, and so you're going to want to take them off at these little couplers on each side. Once we have the couplers off, we'll start with this knob, turning it to take it off. You're going to want to hold it with two hands. Some of these will have a little nut under here that'll hold the glass on. If they have that, your glass will stay there when you take it off and it won't fall. If it doesn't have it, you're going to have a big surprise and a mess on the floor. As you can see, we've removed the ends of the chains here, as well as the glass globe that was going around and the pieces that were holding that globe up. Next, we're going to work on removing the light bulbs and the ceiling fan blades, which I'm sure if you've changed a light bulb before, you know you can just turn it, take it out. Pretty simple. Now that we got the bulbs moved out of the way, we can get a little bit better look. As you can see, each one of these blades has two screws holding it in place, and it'll be on every single one going all the way around. We're going to go ahead and take those screws out and set them aside and remove our blades. Now that our fan blades are removed, we're going to work on taking the screws out of the canopy and bringing the canopy down. Now that we have the canopy removed, the next step would be to take out these four nuts. There's two on this side and two on this side here. Once we have that, you're going to want to swing this part of the fan down, and there's a little hook right here, if you can see that, and it's already going through this little slot. You'll just kind of let the fan hang down and rest on that hook as you're taking the wires apart. So as you're removing these nuts, you want to make sure that you take out the two first that are on the hook side. So when this side comes down, it'll fall and just rest right here on top of this hook. The other two over here, you'll want to just take out the one and have the other one loosened, and that'll make your life just a little bit easier. As I've said before, you're going to want to make sure that your power is off. Maybe you have gotten down to go get something to eat, maybe get something to drink. You don't know if somebody has possibly flipped the breaker or the light switch back on while you were gone. So with that, we have this tester here. Now, the only bad thing about these testers is sometimes they will lie to you. So you will go and check a wire and they'll light up. See how this one kind of lights up when you're just tapping it? That'll happen, and that can happen with backfeed and things like that. So what you're going to want to do, better option, is to take the multimeter and you're going to want to stick one of the leads just right here in the end of the wire nut. You want to make sure you get it in there far enough so that it's making contact with the wires that are in there. You're going to want to do that on both sides, the hot side, which is over here, and then the neutral side, which is your white wire. You're going to want to check to make sure that there's no voltage there. You also would want to check to ground as well and make sure you don't have any voltage coming across that in case there's something wrong on your neutral side. If you show 120 volts, you're going to want to double check that your switch is off and that your breaker's off. If you have no power there, you should be good to go. Once you've reconfirmed that your wires do not have power on them, you'll just kind of move them. If you have a bracket like this with a little circle in the middle, you'll just kind of move the wires close together. You can tape the ends if you like, or wire nut them back. Wire nut should fit back up through that hole. You'll have 2 screws right here on each side of your bracket. You're going to loosen those screws up and then take your bracket down. Most flush mount ceiling fans will be about the same setup. There'll be a little differences in different brands. This here is a 44-inch Clarkson 2. All right, so when you're opening up your ceiling fan box for the first time, what I usually like to do is I'll take my box knife, and I don't know if you can see that, but I put the blade at the very lowest setting that I possibly can. It's really, really small. And then I'll just cut right here down the middle. I won't put any pressure on it, just let the blade do its work. And usually, once you get the box opened up, you'll see they have the fan blades almost always on top. Sometimes there's this little piece of paper right here that has instructions and everything, and then the fan blades also have a piece of paper themselves going across. So as long as you don't push down super, super hard, you won't really have to worry about cutting into the fan blades. If you're not comfortable doing that, then you can always just cut right here on the side and then just pull up on it, and it should break loose pretty easily. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through the box and just make sure that we have all of our parts there. So here we go with our unboxing. So like I said, they usually come with this little instruction book here. It tells you how to install everything, put it all in. I've been doing it for a while, so I don't usually ever take a look at these. But you'll have a parts description in here. It'll tell you what parts you have and how many of each. And you just want to make sure that you have all of your parts accounted for so that you're able to put up your ceiling fan with absolutely no problems. So this is a 5-blade fan, which you can see here. I have all 5 blades in that package. They usually come with a little bag of screws, these little washers, and then the pull chains as well. They also throw in some wire nuts. I usually just take these and I throw them in the trash. I have a different brand that I like using. I've never had problems with them. I've seen these little orange wire nuts melt pretty quick before, and they just don't really grab the wires that well, especially when you're messing with number 12, which is what most houses are wired in these days. Another thing we'll have are the arms for our fan blades, which you see here. I have all 5. If you plan on putting on a light kit, your fan should have a light kit. If it is set up to just be a ceiling fan with no light kit, it'll usually come with a little blank plate. And then last thing you'll have are going to be light bulbs. I should have 2 more of these light bulbs inside this box. And you're also going to want to make sure that you have your mounting bracket as well, because this will be really important. Otherwise, you can't get your ceiling fan up. Let's go ahead and take this out here. As you can see, as we get down lower into the box, there's our other 2 light bulbs. And then here we have our 3 glass globes. We're going to want to make sure that these aren't cracked. Make sure they're in one piece. There we go. They look like they're in perfect condition. Gonna want to make sure that we have our canopy. Make sure all screws that you need are either in your canopy or in your mounting bracket. And then last but not least, want to make sure that we have the fan motor itself. As I was saying, if you don't plan on using the light kit on your fan, some fans will come with this blank plate. Okay, so now that we have all of our parts and everything accounted for, we've already got all of our stuff unbagged. Our arms, our hanging bracket, light kit, our blades are out of their package. Next thing we're going to want to do is open up our package that has all the little screws and whatnot in it. I like to use the other half of the foam piece from the fan just so I don't lose anything. So I can just take the bag out and just dump stuff in like that. It's a good holding place for things. We have these little chains and then all the little washers and screws. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up this little bag with all these tiny little screws that have these washers on them. And we're going to end up breaking apart all of these little bitty washers, and we're going to put them on the ends of these screws. These screws right here are going to be for mounting your fan blades to the actual fan itself. So for now, we're going to leave these closed, and we're just going to set them aside and not worry about them until we get to that step. Alright, so now that we have all of our little washers on the end of the screws, we even had a couple extra screws because most ceiling fans come with a few extra parts. Next, we're going to be putting our blades onto our brackets that mount to the ceiling fan. Some ceiling fans have different colors of blades, like this one does. It has a lighter color and it has a darker color. Today we're going to be doing the dark side. And so what you're going to want to do to be able to set this up is you're going to want to take your fan blade arm, and the side that you want to be facing down, you're going to want the top of the arm to be on that side. And then the back side of this, you're going to want to line it up with these holes. And then you're going to want to put, see if I can do this with one hand here. There we go. You're going to want to take these little screws right here that we put the washers on, and you're going to want to put those inside of these holes. And you're going to do that for each blade and tighten them down. You can tighten them down with a screwdriver. I use an impact, but I do really light tightening. See if I can probably show you here. So I'll take it and I'll just kind of get it where it's snug, and then just give it one little hit like that. And usually they're pretty good. I've never really had a problem doing it that way. So there you go. Let's get these blades built and get them put on. Alright, so now that we have built our screws and we've gotten our brackets, we've chose the color that we want to put facing on the downside. Everything's pieced together. Next thing we're going to do is get our bracket, and we're going to go ahead and mount that. You want to make sure before you mount your ceiling fan, if you took down just a regular light fixture, you're going to want to make sure that that box, that whatever fixture it was mounted to it, is a fan rated box. If it's a plastic box, that's generally not a good idea to hang a ceiling fan back onto. If it's a fiberglass box, it's the same thing. Ceiling fan rated boxes say on the inside that they are rated for a ceiling fan, and then what weight that they are rated for. You have 50 pounds, you have 70 pounds, there's different ones. If you're not sure, you might want to contact a qualified electrician in your area and have them come out and look at it and make sure. If it's not, then you're definitely going to want to have that box changed out for one that is rated to a ceiling fan box. If it is rated for a ceiling fan box, then let's go ahead and proceed on with installing this ceiling fan. Alright, so first step in mounting your new flush mount ceiling fan is you're going to want to take your bracket and find the mounting holes on it. Run your screws up through there and then get them snug down. Make sure that your bracket doesn't have any kind of wiggle in it. Okay, so after we have our bracket mounted, we're going to want to check to see how this new fan will get mounted up. As you can see, it has 3 slotted holes and then one hole here that is just a single hole with no slot. On our bracket, we have these 4 screws right here. So 3 of these you're going to end up loosening up, and then 1 screw you're going to take out entirely. Okay, so now that we have our screws loosened up and that 1 screw taken out, you're going to see this fixture has this square hole in here, and then on your mounting bracket you'll have this little hook. These are usually on flush mount fixtures, and they're made so that you can just hang your fixture off of there and let go of it. That way you don't have to have a second person here helping you, and then you can just hook up all your wires where they need to go. So on these, you will have a ground wire, 1 coming from your fan and 1 on your bracket. Those wires, you're going to twist those together, and you're going to tie them with your copper, your bare copper wire that is coming from your ceiling fan box. You'll also have your neutral wire, and it is labeled on the fan itself neutral. Not all fans are like this, but most of them are. So you'll tie this white neutral to the white wire that's coming from your ceiling fan box. And then you will have these wires here. 1 is blue and 1 is black. That's usually how they are on ceiling fans. Your black wire will be for the fan motor, and your blue wire will be for your fan light. Now, as you can see here, I only have a black, a white, and a bare copper. And you're probably wondering, well, what do I do with the extra wire that I have coming from my fan? I have 1 for a light and 1 for a motor, and I only have 1 switch to this house. If you want to add another switch, you can have an electrician come out and install a second switch for you. He would run a new wire and everything back up to your ceiling fan if your access is accessible. If not, there's other ways to get it done. But in this case, we're not adding another switch for right now. We're just going to take this blue and this black wire together for the fan and the light. We're going to twist them around each other, and we're going to take them and put them with the black wire that's coming from the ceiling. That way both our fan and our fan motor will have power. So now we have all of our wires tied together. We have our bare copper to our green wire coming off of our fan bracket, and the green wire coming off of our actual fan motor. We have our white or neutral wire coming from our box from the house going to the fan motor as well. And then we have our black wire coming from the house tied to our blue and our black wire coming from the fan motor. Whenever you put these together, you're always going to want to start with your greens or your ground. That's just in case if something is to happen, go wrong, whatever, as you're hooking it up, somebody comes in and flips a light switch, you're not going to complete the circuit when you're messing with one of these other wires. Let's say if you were to start with this black wire and somebody come in and flipped a switch and you were to get shocked or electrocuted, which definitely would not be good. So you always want to start with your green wire just as a safety measure. And also, whenever you're tying your wires together, after you have them under the wire nut, you're going to want to do a pull test on each one. And that's just to make sure that none of these wires come out from under the wire nut, because if they do, you'll end up finishing this whole project, going down to flip your lights on to see everything that you've done, and your light won't work because one of these wires may have slipped out from underneath the wire nut, and then you're going to have to start all over again, taking everything apart just to get to these wires. So you want to double check after you get your wire nuts. Just give them a good pull test. It's easier with 2 hands, and make sure that the wires are nice and snug in there and they're tight. Okay, so now that we've double checked, we've got our wires tightened, we've done our pull test on them. Next, we're going to end up taking this bracket. So as you see, it's just hanging here on the hook. It's not going to fall down or anything, and that just helps you kind of get your wires hooked up and keeps this out of the way. Makes it a little bit easier so you can do it by yourself instead of having a second hand. So you'll end up taking your bracket, as you see here, and you see these slots, we'll end up lining our screws up with it, just like that. Make sure that all three are lined up, and then, let's see if I can get this one here. We'll make sure that we get them all lined up, and then twisted in place, just like that. Once we have that done, we'll go ahead and before we tighten these down, we're gonna wanna take that single screw that actually goes right here in the back. We're gonna wanna put the single screw back, and then we'll tighten down these other three. So for our next step, it's not the blades. It's actually the canopy that goes on the fan. This canopy here is a little bit different. You see it has 4 screws, but those screws actually have little rubber washers. As you can see, they're all raised off just a little bit. The way that this canopy goes up is you're gonna line up these screws here with the open-ended of this part of the slots, and then you're gonna turn it, tighten it up just as you would the fan motor to the bracket. So let's go ahead and get that set up and see what it looks like. All right, so now that we have our canopy on, got everything pushed up, lined up with the slots as we talked about before, and then twisted it on. Everything's tight, it's not coming down. So next step is gonna be to put on our fan blades. As you can see here, we have these 2 holes right here going all the way around the fan motor. The 2 closest ones is just where the blades sit next to each other. Where they're spaced further apart, that's where your actual fan blade will get mounted to. So this is where this little bag of screws comes in handy. And then we have our fan blades already built that we built in the very beginning. So let's go ahead and open up our bag of screws, and I'll show you how to put those fan blades up. Okay, so now that you have everything put together up on the ceiling, canopies on, wires are made up, fan motor's up, next you're going to want to take these screws and you're just going to want to slide them through these holes on your brackets that are for your fan blades. You usually want to take a screwdriver or take your impact, and you're going to put it over top the head of that screw, and you're just going to take it up. Make sure that you go right there inside that hole, and then just don't tighten it up, just snug it up very lightly, and then go ahead and put your other screw in and get that lined up. Once you have those both lined up in the right spot, you can go ahead and snug those screws down and then move on to the next blade. All right, so we have all of our blades installed. All of our screws are tightened down. Whenever you start to put your blades in, I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning, but you're probably gonna wanna start them with a Phillips head screwdriver rather than using an impact, just because you can cross thread them really easy. And if you cross thread these, it'll make it a real pain just to finish installing your ceiling fan. So our next step is going to be putting our light kit on. Now, like I said before, most fans will come with this little blank plate, which if you're not putting a light kit on and you're just gonna put in can lights in the corners of your rooms or whatever you plan on doing, then you can just leave this blank plate in place and you're done. But we're putting a light kit on this fan, and luckily it came with one. So what you're gonna wanna do is you have a few sets of screws here. There's one right here on this side, there's one right here, and then there's one on the back side, right here on my finger's at. Can't really see it, it's kind of hard to get to from where I'm sitting at. You don't want to take these screws off because these go to the switch that controls which way the fan rotates. One side will rotate to cool the room, and the other side will rotate to bring the heat from the ceiling down to heat the room. So let's go ahead and take this plate off and put our light kit on. Whenever you take those screws out, make sure that you hold on to them. Don't throw them in the trash because you're gonna need those. They plan on you using the ones that held that plate in place. As you can see here on the light kit, it just has empty holes in it. It doesn't have the extra screws. So you wanna make sure once you take those out that you hold on to them and don't throw them in the trash. Okay, so now we have our blank cover removed, and then we made sure to save the little screws that came out of it that was holding it in place. we're gonna take our light kit, which we have here, and we're gonna connect the wires that go to it. From this fan, we have the white, which would be our neutral, and then we have a blue, which will control our light. On the light kit itself, we have a white coming off of it and a black wire coming off of it. You're just gonna find the ends that come from the fan and just slide the little connectors in here. These are pre-made connectors that are already there, and just snap them together, and they should be polarized, so you won't be able to really mix this up at all. Once you have that in place, you're going to want to take your light kit, and this big notch that goes right here will go right in place of where that switch is that we talked about earlier. And you're just going to want to feed these wires up in place and kind of get them out of the way so they don't get crushed or pinched. And then you're going to want to find this notch here and slide it up in place where that switch is at. And that's basically what that cutout is for. This kit won't really go up any other way besides that direction. So if you're having trouble with it, double check, make sure that you have that switch and this notch here lined up. Once you have it put up there, go ahead and take your screws and just run them back through the holes, and they should line right up with these here. And then we'll move on to the next step. All right, if you followed through this whole step-by-step on how to put up a flush mount ceiling fan, we started from the bracket, worked our way to the blades, and eventually got to the light kit. Everything's put on, bulbs are in. We have our chains put on as well. We have these little chains here. One will have like a little light bulb on it. One has the little fan symbol. Not all of them have that, but some do. Let's go ahead and see how well it turned out. There we go. A little hard to see with the light in the way. Fan seems to be working good. Got our chain for the light here. Light's working good. You can hear the motor. So there's off. There's the third, or your fastest speed. Here's your mid speed here. Deep up in my mind, I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed.